Hello, so we are now on to part 3 of my process for making my Christmas journal, and this video is going to be about making the signatures, the pages inside. So I've got loads of different random bits of footage I've been filming over the past few weeks, here and there. So to begin with, these are some hand-dyed papers. So I didn't do the usual coffee dyeing. I did use a bit of coffee actually here, but I used a combination of watercolours, like liquid watercolours, and fountain pen inks. I think I mentioned in my last video that I was playing around with fountain pen inks and things. So I was just dyeing them in a very shallow sort of square rectangular plastic bucket thing with a little bit of water, trying to use as little of the paints and inks as I could. And I was kind of I was trying to go for a pinky purple theme. But you can see some of the pink was a little bit too bright, a little bit too saturated. But I think I can probably fit in with my Christmas theme, I should think. But there are some pages with a very, very bright blue on, which I do need to sort out because it's completely not in my sort of colour scheme. But yeah, these were really fun to do. I just used a fairly heavyweight printer paper, nothing fancy. Yeah, I just had to play around. It didn't take too long, hung them out to dry. And I ended up with these lovely, lovely crinkly edges when I put them inside the cover, as you can see. But I don't think I'm going to leave them like that. I don't want to just use these papers. I do want to add in all sorts of different papers. So make it more like a junk journal. So add in lots of different types of papers, different textures and colours and things. So by the end of it, the edge is not going to look like that. And as you can see, some of the papers actually did tear a little bit when they were wet. So I do need to sort of do something to fix that, I think. So in terms of options for things to make pages from, I do have my printables that I've got on Etsy, they're basically plain undated planner printables, and they are A5, well, they're whatever size you print them, but you can print them on A5. I could, in theory, print 2 on, put them in, but another option I have is to shrink them down, make them small, and just use them as journal cards. So I'm probably going to play around doing that a bit more. So the first thing I need to decide on is how many pages. So I've gone through the last 2 years' Christmas journals, and I made some notes on that piece of paper about how many pages I did each year and how I felt about, like, did I need more, did I need less? Just to kind of get a general idea, because I don't remember numbers from year to year. God knows how many pages I did, can't remember. And it was quite nice to look back through them, actually, because I put them away for a whole year, and then when I get them out again, I'm like, oh, it's quite good, actually. Oh, quite like that. Oh, God. I'm quite impressed with how much I did, to be honest, because it always feels like I'm just sort of winging it and doing it in a massive hurry. So it was quite nice to look through them and see. I'm just showing you now my Christmas trolley. I haven't jazzed it up yet, but I'm going to get my Christmas on properly soon, I promise. You'll notice that I haven't been particularly Christmassy this year. I haven't got any Christmas music playing yet, and I don't know, I'm finding it a little bit harder to get into the mood this year, but I will do. And I figured what I'll do is I'll sort of jazz up my Christmas trolley and make it like proper Christmassy with, I don't know, maybe lights on. I've no idea how I'm going to work it, but that's going to be where I store all my Christmassy bits for my journal this year. So for my 2019 journal, I made 3 junk journal signatures and I sewed them in and I worked into the book. So it was all sewn in. And then when I came to do the pages, it was just a case of opening the book and working directly onto the page. And I probably had more than I needed that year. I do remember feeling like I had a little bit too many pages and maybe I didn't need so many. But in hindsight, just the pages as they were plain with all the decoration, all the like sewing along the edges and stuff, they're still quite nice, like as a thing. So I don't mind having sort of so-called empty pages. And then the following year, last year, I did a different method. I had a plain piece. So these are all loose sheets of paper, and I worked on them as I went. So I just grab a new sheet every time I needed one. And then by the time I'd finished, I just sewed them in. So the binding was the last thing I did for 2020, which you can see there. If you haven't seen either of these videos, they're going to be linked at the end. You can see my processes for the last 2 years and the year before, I think. But yeah, just looking at these two journals, I'm just really enjoying how, when you look at the pages from this angle, all the variety and all the textures and stuff, So like I said, when I come to finish this one, I'm hoping to have the same effect. So I don't want to just have that plain sort of, even though it's gorgeous, it really is gorgeous, that purpley pinky crinkly paper, I want it to have that junky journal feel with all the bits and bobs sticking out and all that kind of stuff. So I know what feel I'm going for, so it's just a case of working out how many pages. And having looked at how many pages I did for the last few years, I have a rough idea of how many, but then I think I just decide to just start working and not think too hard about the numbers and end up with however many pages I end up with. And I think I decided that even if I have extra, it doesn't matter. I don't care, so I'm just going to go for it. So looking around me on my desk, I have my colour palette to hand and my original inspiration pictures. I grabbed this out of the cupboard because I bought this last year, a couple of years ago. It's like a very sparkly wallpaper. I'm not going to use it for the signatures, but I've just grabbed it out of the cupboard to remind me that I want to get more bling and more sparkle into the journal this year, and it sort of goes with my colour scheme. This box here is full of ephemera, so I need to go through this and pull out any pieces that could in theory be used as signatures. And then it's a case of going through the large sheets that I have and working out which ones I'm going to use as pages. So this is a sheet of Tomoe River paper that I was playing around with ink when I was doing my painting of wallpaper pieces. I think I used it to block the excess ink up, actually, to be honest. Underneath that there's some very, very bright gold paper. This is black paper with gold edges. I just grabbed from the shelf in case I want to use that for something. Doilies. These are paper bags that I actually put through my printer with a pattern on. I was going to use them to sell things at one point, but I haven't. This is glassine. This is a cover from Midori Notebook. They come with these lovely glassine covers on. Some very old and very crumpled by now Japanese style paper with gold flecks in. So all of these sheets, it's just, I went around my room and I just pulled off everything that was large enough to be a reasonable page size, basically. So I've got a couple of scrapbooking sheets there and also some scraps in case I want to do small pages. Then I have things like magazine paper, book paper. I mean, that's not specifically Christmassy, but that flower there looks Christmassy. And berries and hedgerows can be a Christmassy thing. Old advent calendar. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this as a page, but perhaps I can cut things out later on and make it into tags or journaling cards. Same with this one. This is also an advent calendar, actually. And it has a really lovely like 3D pop-up house thing in it. So hoping to use that somehow. And we've got some vintage book pages. I just kind of pulled out the ones that kind of match my colour scheme and I actually like the images of. These are my doily designs that I did. So these are actually in my Etsy shop as well. They're kind of mixed in with some full A4 sheet, collage sheets. But I was just playing around with doily designs and I thought I'd print a load of those off. And then these are my A4 downloadable collage sheets you can get on Etsy now. Not all of them. That one there with the red stars is not available, but some of the more obviously Christmassy ones are now available in my shop for you to purchase and download if you want to use them. So I've got like a mixture. I've got these holly designs, there's bauble designs, and I think there's like a Christmas cocktail and trifle design, and then a few like fir leaf type things. So I don't know whether I'm going to put these in as a full page at this point. I'm kind of trying to work out whether I'm going to use them to collage or use them as pages. Paper bags. Now these are my collage sheets from last year, and I printed these off as a test to check the colours were all okay. And they don't really fit my colour scheme, but I'm going to probably use them anyway. I'm going to use bits and bobs from there. This sticker book I got for my son last year and he was completely not interested. Possibly because of the learning element. He was like, I'm not going to stick them on the right page. I'm going to stick them where I want, which is fine. But he kind of lost interest after a while. So all of the pages at the back are not used. But I'm thinking I can use the pages here. I can put them in as pages, or I can cut them up for ephemera. And then I've got magazines. So magazine paper is not strong enough to use as a page itself. But I just thought I would kind of keep them there to remind me that I could use the images from them as put something on the page. I don't know exactly what yet. So looking at my hand-dyed pages now, that white one is just as a template, it's an A4.5. I'm looking at them now and I'm thinking, wow, I do need to do something with them. They're a bit torn at the edges where they sort of broke in the water, and some of them have this very, very strong blue colour that isn't something I want in my journal. So I'm thinking perhaps on the pages where there's very bright blue, I can use these collage sheets to cover up, and that way it sort of strengthens the page as well. And I could either just stick them in the middle to kind of make the centerpiece where you sew it to the spine stronger, or I could just cover the whole thing, because I've got quite a few there with the bright blue on that I want to cover up basically. So the first plan is to go through all the pages and cover up anything that I don't particularly like with the large sheets of collage paper, and then I'm going to take it from there. So I've now got to the point where I've covered each sheet with some collage papers. Some of them I've done both sides, like this one, but a little bit later on you'll see some of them I did one side. And it was just a case of cutting up my collage sheets and slapping them down and putting them any old where, not thinking too much about it, just to give a little bit more strength and a little bit more variety to the pages that I do have. So I'm just going to go through and show you them now, and I'm looking at them now and I'm like, oh god, they still look awful, but this is only the first stage. This is like the base sort of layer, and once I start getting more overtly Christmassy stuff on, I'm sure I'm going to feel a little bit more happy with the pages. Yeah, so you can see with the doily sheets, I kind of cut the doilies up and place them around the edges rather than just plonking them straight in the middle. I've done some bits off center, some bits are very central. Yeah, I just played with the placement really and tried to vary it up and have different things in different places. So you can see here there's quite a few that I've only stuck on one side, because I wanted to keep, you know, that hand-dyed paper visible. I didn't want to cover it all up. So I've got several sheets here that are just plain on the back. So God knows how many pages I have. I think I just didn't bother counting. I knew it was roughly the same as the past few years, but I didn't actually specifically count them carefully. I just did them until I felt like stopping, and it feels like the right amount to me. Just looking at my colour scheme now, just to kind of remind myself of what the direction I'm heading in, just to check to see if I'm kind of veering off into the wrong direction. But the colour scheme will come more into play when I start doing painting later on, I should think. And like I said, I don't have to stick to it. It's just a rough guide for me. So once I've got all my pages, like the base layer of the pages sorted out, I'm looking to try and add in a little bit more variety. So rather than just having the pages as they are, I'm going to intersperse other pages in between. So I'm thinking about maybe doing folded in half doilies or small pieces, small pages and things like that. So I'm just kind of going through all my scraps that I have left to see if any of them would work as sort of alternative pages. So for example, the first thing I decided to do is take apart the sticker book and see if I can't use some of the pages in there to add into my signatures. And then going through the children's book illustration sheets that I pulled out and trying to see if I can fold those in a way that you can still see the pictures, but I can also have them as pages to stick on the back of, or journal, or stick things on. Because even if they're not the right way up, they're still a Christmassy theme and they still have Christmas elements on them. So even if I'm plonking them in sideways, it's still nice to see the Christmassy illustrations in between whatever I put on the page. So I don't have a ton of sort of like interesting pages to put in, but I think I've got like maybe 2 or 3 for each signature, just to kind of break up the monotony of the, the hand-dyed paper pages. So this is the point where I start sorting them into piles. I'm trying to work out how many signatures I'm going to have, and I'm trying to make sure that they each have a variety of papers. So all the doily sheets, the sheets that have like the fake doilies on, I want to put one in each signature, for example. I don't want to put them all in the same one. Things like the bauble pattern, try and put them in each signature, so not all in the same one. So just kind of trying to make sure there's a variety within each signature. So I did start off thinking I was going to do 3 signatures at this point, but I can tell you now that I changed it and I've ended up with 5. But the reason I ended up with 5 was because once I folded all these pieces and put them all together, it turned out that they were a bit too bulky, and they kind of, it would have been hard to work on the page because there were so many pages in each signature. So I do end up splitting them down and making them into smaller signatures. Okay, so I didn't actually film the process of me doing the signatures to completion. And that's because I did it at like 5 in the morning when my son was asleep, and I just was grabbing the opportunity to get it done. But here are the signatures. Now, they are not sewn into the spine, and the reason is I'm not going to work in the book this year. I'm going to work on signatures, and then once I finish the signatures, I'm going to then eventually sew them into the spine. And the reason for this is because I just felt that if I sew them all in now, when you're working on them, it can get a little bit cumbersome. It's a really nice feeling to be working in the book. I thought I would just try this method because I haven't done it before. So what I've done is I've actually created 5 signatures. And you can see that I have bound them with thread. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to work on a signature at a time. So say I'm working on this one first. That's completed. Put it aside. Oh, next signature. That's completed. Put it aside. And at the end of Christmas, they're all done. I'm going to get my scissors and I'm going to cut all the threads, but then using the same holes and the same template on here, punching holes on here, I'm then going to re-sew them into here. And that gives me sort of like the flexibility of working on the signatures, like it's less bulky. If I want to like take it around the house, I can carry it around the house. But at the end of the day, it's all going to be bound into the book. So that's my plan for this year. So in terms of these signatures, I did 5 instead of 3 in the end because they were just a bit too bulky as 3, sorry. So there's now 5 signatures. I used scrapbook paper, which I'm fine with. It's quite nice. It's sort of not quite the theme, but I don't care. It's Christmassy. But these ones I used that gold paper, and it was because I had it on the desk and it was gold and it was big enough. But looking at it now, I'm like, oh God, it's too sort of brassy. There's something about the tone I don't like. And also I have a feeling that I'm not going to be able to stick things on here very well. I mean, I'll try, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, when I just come to sew the signatures in, I just don't sew this one. I can just take that off and that can go in like that. So I'm not bothered at this point. It can just be as a cover to kind of keep it together, if you know what I mean. So this is the situation right now. Got all my signatures ready so I can start working on them in terms of if I want to put pockets or if I want to do, I don't know, other elements on the pages before I actually start journaling. I don't know how much. I haven't decided, to be honest, at this point. I don't know how much I'm going to do ahead of time. So this is always a dilemma, isn't it? It's like if you do everything ahead of time, you put all your pockets and stuff, then when you come to do it, you might not want a pocket that day or whatever. But it also does help if you do it ahead of time because, you know, I don't really have time to journal every day as it is. It's not a habit that I actually have going at the moment. So it's not something I find easy to do when it comes to Christmas. So I probably will do a fair amount of like adding elements to the pages before I actually start working in it. But yeah, that will be the next step, is like working out how much to do on each page before I actually start using it. But it's really, I feel good to know now it's a usable stage. If I don't have any time to do anything else between now and Christmas, at least I've got these ready to go. Just quickly, I'll just show you. This is my template. I used this, I don't know if I used it last year or the year before, but I use the notches on the edge as a guide. Inside, punch the holes with a pointy tool, what are they called? Awl. I actually shoved this through my finger, by the way. Not like through, not like one side to the other, but I did, yeah, I went through my finger and came out the other side, but only a tiny bit. So yeah, be careful. I'm quite glad I wasn't filming. But yeah, be careful with these, obviously, that goes without saying. But yeah, you poke the holes through, and then the thread situation, I tried to illustrate this before. Down the middle hole, and then you kind of go up and down, loop back, skip the middle hole, and then I can't remember if it's down or up, but anyway, you go like that. And then when you come back up, you have your threads either side of that one, and then you tie a knot with these two. That was a great explanation. But yeah, that's how I do it. So in the center, you can see I have a little doodad knot there. And that's probably how I'll do it when I finally sew them in. So not too much else to say in this video, really. I'm good to go. I need to sort of trim this page because that was too big, and there's a couple of other pages I need to trim down, and I might start sewing along the edges. I might do sticking random things in when I feel like it, but I feel like the minimum is done now for me to actually start working in here. So yeah, that's where I'm up to. So let me know how you're getting on with yours. Have you decided what format you're going to do this year? How do you do it? Do you do it already bound into a book? Are you using a traveler's notebook? Let me know what you're up to, and if you have any links for any videos, I'd love to see them because I love a good Christmas journal video. Yeah, and I'm just going to make an effort between now and the next video to properly get Christmassy, because I feel like it's just been a bit hard this year to kind of get Christmassy. I just need to make more of an effort, I think. I need to stare hard at these pictures and channel my Christmas spirit somehow. But yes, I'll try and be more Christmassy for the next video. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was useful. Any comments, leave them down below, and I will see you next time. Bye.